The topic that I chose for tonight is about selfishness, because...
Is it positive at least?
It's very positive.
Positive side?
Very positive.
Okay.
Something is not working.
Very
I
positive.
would shut it down.
And it was really in honor of Jared's friend, who didn't show. But this is the audio file for Jared and Emma, because Jared and Emma just got married. Hooray!
Congratulations!
Jared's friend. Jared and someone else. Different Jared.
Okay.
This Jared's gonna get married soon, really soon.
Wait, he is Jared.
There's another Jared.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Now,
that's so confusing.
concurrently, my sister got engaged over the weekend.
Mazel tov. How old is
Yes, she's 21.
Wow.
And
What's that couple? Oh my.
that's when I had my first kid, so she's still behind. She's 21, and she got engaged. And I'm going to mandate my new brother-in-law to listen to this class because self-centeredness and being selfish is the worst thing or the most challenging characteristic that you have to get rid of before you engage in that kind of relationship. And the reason why, which uses as sort of a prelude, the reason why being selfish is so bad for long-term relationships is because the idea of a long-term relationship, primarily, especially a marriage, is where two people unite and two people share their lives together. Mm-hmm. And I've always given the definition of love as expansion of oneself to include someone beyond oneself. I've said this 1,000 times, right? You expand yourself to include someone else. Me doesn't mean just me. Me means me and my family. That's who I am. Now, if that's a definition of love, and marriage is rooted or is influenced or is a big part of the marriage is love, then obviously the challenge that we're going to encounter if we're going to be successful in our long-term relationships is being selfish, being focused on myself, being focused inwardly, only caring for myself and not for anyone else.
What's wrong with that?
No, it's nothing wrong with it, especially if you want to live by yourself. But if you want to include someone else in your life.
We talked about this a few weeks ago, I remember.
I mentioned it, but I didn't tell you how to do it.
Oh,
because this is the discussion of love, which I don't think I gave here, but the discussion of love is all about
Some other one or something.
Whatever. Yeah,
the difference between love and lust and
that's what
That's right.
The 5 C's.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well,
That's right.
okay, whatever.
Good job.
These things are all like meshing together, right?
Interconnected.
But I mentioned
we think together.
that the number one deterrent for love is selfishness. And like I've said 1,000 times before, a small child rarely wakes up to tend to her crying mother, right? It's always the opposite. Mm-hmm. Because children from day one, we're innately focused on ourselves. We care about what we want, and our whole life is trying to accomplish what we need and what feels good for me is good, it's good for humanity, it's good for society. Yeah. And when we meet other people or we want to build relationships with other people, let's see them and let's be here for them. Yeah. And when something bothers them, it's important to me and it bothers me as well. How do I do that? I have to learn to break out of my shell of self-centeredness, of focusing only on myself. Now, I want to point out that the Talmud says, this is just a side note, or a sidebar, a byproduct of being selfish is that you can't have a relationship with the Almighty, which is what the Talmud makes this brilliant connection, that the way to get emunah, to get faith, is while becoming less selfish. Why is that? Doesn't make any sense. We think of selfish as something interpersonal, while faith is something man and God. And the way it was described by my grandfather was that when I open up a window in my life, in my soul, in my heart, to see other people, that window is open to see God as well. If I'm only if I'm really focusing only on myself, not only can I not build a relationship with other people, I can't build a relationship with God. With God. Which is learn
to basically consider other
yourself. Open up. Now, but the problem is that okay. So we know that being selfless is really important, very important. The most important thing in relationships, and also in our quest for faith. But what I want to talk about tonight really is how do we get it? How do we get selflessness? And I wanted. Well, it's a small crowd, so we could be a little bit more interactive than we normally are. But I want to. Well, Ron's here, so we're always going to be interactive.
That's right.
So how do we become less selfish people? And I had a brilliant insight, in my opinion, it related to how to do this. So I think. So I asked my brother today. I worked with my brother. And I asked him, say, how do you become less selfish? So what did he say?
What did he say?
He said, do acts of selflessness. You care about yourself. You're selfish. You're self-focused. You're worrying only about yourself.
Obviously.
Right. So if you're focusing on yourself, if you care about yourself, if you're looking out for yourself, start looking out for other people. Right? So yeah, you want to take care of yourself, and you feel only good. It only feels good when you take care of yourself. Start taking care of others. Start caring for others. Start praying for others. Start worrying about others. Start seeing other people.
Involved in your community. Try to help. Involved in other causes to help some,
Yeah. So
communities.
an example of this would be is that let's say if you don't like someone, you dislike someone, you want to like them. So how do you do that? You try to give to them. You try to care for them. You try to pray for them. By doing that, you're noticing them. You're engaging with them. You're seeing them, and you'll start liking them. And with one thing, you're making yourself less of a self-centered person, more seeing other people. That was his idea. I have a totally new idea, and this is what I want to present here tonight. So I want to start with the most famous verse in the entire Torah. What's the most famous verse in the entire Torah?
The most famous what?
Verse. Pasuk. What's the most famous pasuk in the Torah?
Bereshit bara Elohim.
Yeah.
I think that's. I would say
What do you think? What's the most famous verse in the Torah?
it's not Bereshit.
I am the Lord your God.
I'm Lord your God.
Well, I mean the Shema.
Shema. You think the Shema is the most favorite verse in the Torah?
Shema is in the Torah.
Shema. Of course, Shema is in the Torah.
Where is it?
It's in Deuteronomy.
In what?
Deuteronomy. Dvarim.
The Dvarim?
Dvarim 6. Deuteronomy 6. Yeah. Yeah.
That's basic Torah class.
Come on, what's the most famous? What do you say, Stephanie?
And God said to Moses, I don't know, it's not repeated like 18 times.
Yeah, it's kind of.
Why? It's not Bereshit and not Shema. What else? I mean, those are like.
I'm going to say it, and everyone is going to agree with me that I'm correct.
Okay, then say it.
Ve'ahavta l're'acha kamocha. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Right? That is the most famous verse in the Torah.
But I would put it together with Bereshit and Shema.
You asked.
Why is it the most famous?
Because everyone knows it.
But everybody knows Bereshit and everybody knows
No,
Shema.
I'm saying, even the non-Jews, they all know love your neighbor as yourself. Everyone knows it. All non-Jews know it. Everyone knows it. Love your neighbor as yourself.
Isn't it the golden rule? Isn't that what the golden
It is the golden rule.
Treat others the way you get.
Yes.
Well, they always.
Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's obviously it's in Leviticus 19, right? Leviticus, Vayikra. Yes.
Can you say it in
Vayikra. No one knows what Vayikra means. Leviticus, Vayikra 19, you love your neighbor as yourself. And like Jared pointed out, the Talmud in the Gemara in Masachet Shabbat, in Tractate Shabbat, 31a says that the fellow came to Hillel and he says, teach me all the Torah al regel achas, on one leg. And he says, this doesn't quite say V'ahavta l'chamocha. He says, that you dislike, don't do to your friend, which is a play on the words of V'ahavta l'chamocha. So it's a famous verse in the Torah, and there's a few major problems with it.
Yeah, what happens if you don't love yourself?
Well, that's
I don't think that was the problem.
no. That's
What happens if sometimes we can be our most biggest critics?
So that's a good point. That's a very good point that Jonathan is bringing up. V'ahavta l'chamocha, you love your neighbor as yourself. Means if you don't love yourself, you can't possibly love someone else. And I agree with that 100%. People who don't love themselves are incapable of loving others. And that's a totally true point. You have to love yourself if you want to love others. But there's two structural problems with this verse. And problem number one is that if you take a look at the Talmud in Bava Metzia 62a, the Talmud there gives a very interesting scenario where you're walking in the desert and you have a pitcher of water. You're walking with your friend and you have a little water bottle and you're dying of thirst and there's only enough water for one person to survive. So what do? So the first opinion of Ben Petura says what you do is you split the water and you both die. Second opinion says Rabbi Akiva v'chai achicha imach chayecha kodmim l'chayei achicha. Your life takes precedence. It's your bottle of water. You have to save yourself. And this is the way everyone agrees. Everyone agrees in the end that everyone agrees that we have to save ourselves. I am more important than anyone else in the world. You have to take precedence. You're more important than anyone else. How could the Torah tell me? V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, you shall love everyone as much as you love yourself. Well, the Torah tells me specifically, no. You have to love yourself more than anyone else. There's a blatant contradiction. Right, Miriam?
You love yourself first, but when the circumstances allows it, then you love them as much as yourself. You'll survive first.
You're trying to finagle out of the problem.
Yeah.
So this is a question. Almost all the commentaries are stuck with this problem. How could I be told to love everyone as much as I love myself when I'm specifically told that you're the most important? Who do I have to worry about the most in the entire world? Myself. And everyone has to worry about themselves. And I don't have to care if it comes down to you versus someone else, you have to save yourself. You have to care for yourself more than anyone else.
Well,
so
I'm happy to see that the Torah is backing down on now because it makes me feel much more comfortable now.
You know what?
But for
There's a lot of time.
what about like
circumstances that
like your parents
you're in a
and
desert
their
and
progeny
there's only
and
one
they're
bottle
like,
of
you know,
water?
Okay, but remember, the Torah is telling us you have to love all humanity.
Good to know that.
All humanity. You have to love, for sure, Jews. You have to love them as much as you love yourself. Really? But what if I'm walking with him in the desert? I don't have to love him as much. I have to love myself more. I have to care for myself more. I mean, in practical terms, I have to take precedence over everyone else. This is a major problem. Everyone agrees the problem?
I can see that there's a problem.
There's a major problem. What do you say, Stephanie? Problem.
I mean, I'm just wondering. Okay,
Ask them.
supposing you have God forbid, you're with with one of your siblings, your son, daughter, whatever, and all of a sudden you're in that situation.
Now, in that situation, if in that situation in the desert, you're entitled to give. If you decide you want to be altruistic and you want to give your water to the other guy, you're allowed to do it, but you're not obligated to do it. According to the first opinion in the Talmud, according to Ben Petura in the Talmud, in Bava Metzia 62a, you have to split the water. You're obligated because you cannot bring about that your friend dies. That's what it says. According to the second opinion, which is the opinion that we go by, the answer is that you are entitled to give it to your friend, but you're not obligated to. Why? Because your life takes precedence. So if it's your brother or your cousin or your kid, God forbid,
but
right?
If you're I'm thinking like son or daughter, not brother.
Let's say son or daughter. Because you love your child.
You know why I'm saying son or daughter versus brother?
Yeah, because you love your children and I can't
No,
stand their brothers.
not just because of that, but because of for evolutionary reasons too.
Because
would it make sense? The thing is, if your children don't survive, then who's going to be able to procreate for the next generation and for generation and generation to come?
Okay, but I'm saying the point doesn't really matter. It means you love your children for whatever reason, but you're entitled to do. If I'm working with anyone, I'm entitled. But the point is that I'm not obligated. The Torah says you're obligated to love your fellow as much as you love yourself. It's an obligation, right? But it's not really technically true.
Or is it not true, or is it not enforceable?
No, forget the enforcement. What does the Torah really want me to do? Does the Torah really want me to love my fellow as much as I love myself, or not? On one hand, it's telling me that yes. On the other hand, it's telling me no.
He's trying to.
So that's a major problem with this most famous verse in the Torah. Problem number 2, which is not as much of a structural problem as much as it is a aesthetic problem, and that is, it seems strange, odd, peculiar, unique, bizarre, absurd, anomalous. Is that a word? To tell us it's a strange measurement of love. If I want to tell you love something a lot, I would say love something a lot. So much.
Yeah.
Why does it say you have to love your fellow as yourself? Why is it giving this strange qualification? How much? You have to love your fellow. How much? A lot. How much a lot? So much like yourself. It's a very strange requirement to tell me that I love someone so much, but how much? But I love myself. It's a very funny way for the Torah to tell us the degree with how much I have to love my fellow is as much as I love myself. Does that make sense to that question?
I would say that
You would-
the ultimate love is
It's just
the
saying.
degree of loving yourself, because obviously
No.
you care about yourself. So if you need to care about someone else as much as yourself, basically it's the ultimate level.
So you could be right, yeah, and probably you are right, because it means, what do you love more than yourself? Nothing, besides for God, right? You love God more than
There's
yourself.
only one thing that I can think about that maybe, because I don't know if the Torah took this into account. You would say that you love your children maybe even more than yourself.
Oh, so maybe, yeah.
So then maybe
but maybe the Torah's requirement is only to love as much as you love yourself. Not more. Don't love your fellow as much as you love your kids. Love your kids more.
because your kids, nothing can take over your
So
kids.
I think the simple explanation is like what you're saying. So as much as you love yourself, that's what you have to do. Because if you're going to go to the store and buy yourself whatever, now you want to do kindness with your friend, you want to buy him, I don't know, schnitzel. So you buy him schnitzel, because that's what you buy yourself. If you buy your kids, I don't know, veal, you don't have to buy that. That's a degree you don't have to go, right? But that's just, maybe that's what Ron is saying. I don't think he's correct. But an additional explanation was brought down by Rabbi Nassim C. Finkel. He's known as the Alter of Slobodka. He lived in the latter part of the 19th century, earlier part of the 20th century, and he said a brilliant insight. He says, "Why does the Torah tell us I have to love my fellow as much as I love myself? It's not quantity. It's not how much. How many units of love do I have? Well, for myself, I have 37 units. How much love do I have to give to my fellow? Also 37 units. That's not what it's saying. It's saying the quality. Why do you love yourself? We all love ourselves. Why do you love yourself? Do you love yourself because it's a mitzvah to do so?
No.
Do you say, oh, well, the reason why I love myself is because I was told, I was commanded to do so? No, you love yourself because you love yourself. Because you just feel like it's natural to love yourself. Our job in loving our fellow, it's not to love him because it's a mitzvah to do so. Hey, listen, I can't stand your guts. But the Torah says, I have to love you, so I'll love you, even though I don't want to love you. No, that's not what it means.
Even though you're not lovable.
Right? So I'll love you because I'm told to love you.
Despicable person. Love you
It's kind of like when your parents force you to make friends with someone.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be friends with this kid. You know, we need it for business purposes, right? You're forced to be friends with your cousin. Like, you don't like them. You're just different kinds of, right? It's like, well, I have to love you, so I'll love you. Fine. What do you want to do? I don't know. Let's play, pinball, right? Right? That's not the love the Torah wants. Don't love your fellow because you were told to love him.
Love him or because there's self-interest in place.
No, that's not the kind of love the Torah wants. Right. It's not telling you how much to love him. It's telling you how to love him. What kind of love? Shouldn't it be a love that was forced upon you? Listen, I don't know what to do. I have to love you, so I love you. Hey, how you doing, Jared? I love you. How you doing? No, I'm loving you because I really genuinely like you. I care for you. You're important to me. So that is that is one explanation. That is one explanation of. It's one explanation of why it says to love your fellow as much as yourself. It's not telling you as much as yourself, rather it's telling you just like you love yourself, plain out of love your fellow just plain out of love, right? But I have a third explanation, and this is how it's going to relate to selfishness, and that is like this. So let us recap. This is the point of the night, Ron. I want to hear just this point.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. This is fun. We're trying to have fun. The point of the night is like this. We're trying to figure out how to not be selfish, right? That's the goal. So we have Ron, we have my brother who said, look, you want to be selfless? Act selfless. Do acts of selfless. So I see Ron. I really want to keep it for myself. Right? But I'll give Ron because I want to be. I don't want to be selfish.
So nice.
And give it back. Right? That's what we're told. That's a simple way to get less selfish. I want to say totally different. It says we have to be selfish and we have to stay selfish. But I have to love Ron kamocha, like I love myself. What does that mean? I have to love Ron and everyone, every Jew for sure, perhaps all humanity. I have to love them because I feel like they're a part of me. The way to love Ron or Dana or Jonathan or Stephanie or Jared or me is the proper way to do it. It's not to say you're someone else. This is who I am, and I'm going to care for you. I'm going to love you. No. Instead, what you should say is, you're part of me. I'm going to expand myself to include you. So yes, I'm going to be the most selfish person around. But what is that person? That person is me and Jared and Stephanie. We're part of that person.
We were just talking in the beginning at the Yali events about people that do not say hello. So we need to understand that we're all a part of the same community or a part of a bigger something. It's not just me and you. We are something that is us. That's you, right? That's basically, we're all parts of this,
The same.
of something that we're just a part. I'm a part of it, you're a part of it. This is how we should relate to one another.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying like this, I'm saying, my brilliant insight of the week was that not only am I telling you to not act selfish, not only am I telling you to not act selfless, I'm saying you have to be so selfish. You have to only care about yourself. But what's myself?
Everyone else.
You're part of me. Right? Me includes not just me, it includes you and you and you and you, because I love you.
Yes.
And when it says you have to love your neighbor as yourself, what does that mean? You're only loving yourself. Like Jonathan says, we're loving ourselves. But what is myself? It's not just me, my body, me. It's my whole family. It's my community. It's my friends. It's the entire Jewish people. Now, a way to hit this point home is that in the Torah, the way a great man is described, a great person. What's a great person? How do you say a great person? So in English, say great. His qualities, that he's a great person. The way we say it in Hebrew is Adam Gadol, a large person. What does that mean? You could be a small person. This is me, right? And you're a small person. You're not all that great. When you're large, it means that you includes other people. That's what it means. That's what greatness means. That the person is great. The person is great because he's large. Why? What does it mean he's large? He incorporates more than one person in himself. And when the Torah says "V'ahavta l'rechamecha," the Torah says love your neighbor as yourself. What does that mean? You're loving yourself. But just like you love yourself, you're loving your neighbor. Why am I loving my neighbor? Because my neighbor is part of myself. I can make it that when my neighbor feels pain, I feel pain. Why? Because he is part of me. Not the freaky way, but but expansion of oneself. I'm expanding myself. It's not just me. The Torah describes a interesting anecdote with Sarah, our matriarch. So she had a name change.
From Sarai to
Sarah.
Sarai to Sarah, right?
Sarai.
Her name originally was
Sarah with hey.
Her name originally was Sarai, Right. Well, why did she change it? Her name was originally Sarai.
God changed it for her.
Her name was really Sarai, and God says, "No, you're not Sarai." Right before she's about to bear Isaac, her son, says, "No, your name's not Sarai anymore. Your name is Sarah." Why? So the commentators explain because Sarai means Sarah Shali, my minister. If you're going to be the one who's going to be the matriarch of the Jewish people, you have to include everyone. You have to be an expansive person. You have to incorporate other people. You can't be my minister. You can't be self-focused. You can't be focused on yourself. You have to expand yourself to include someone beyond oneself. We have to try to make it, if we want to be selfless, you don't have to try to change your nature to see. Naturally, we're all inclined to only love ourselves, only care for ourselves, only focus on ourselves. From day one, we said, children care about themselves from the beginning. We're not trying to change that. Don't try to change your nature to make yourself more a benevolent person, a giving person. No, that's not going to happen, or not going to happen as effectively. What you need to do is to change the way you relate to other people. You have to relate to other people as not external entities, but rather part of who you are. You have to expand yourself. You have to not be my personal minister. I want to be Sarah, the minister of everyone. What do you say, Jared? You disagree?
No, I think you're.
I'm expecting to face some resistance with this.
No,
idea.
but I think you're spot on. But I think at the same time, the idea that to find that through works, through action, it's maybe just a means to an end. You get to the same result. No?
That's a really interesting way to think of it.
That's not a bad idea. Means you're saying that these two theories are really two ways to hit the same point.
Exactly.
If someone's not selfish, why are they not selfish? Because they care for other people. Why do they care for other people? Because they love other people. Why do they love other people? Because they feel that they're part of the same thing. Exactly.
But I think that...
There it is, just a second. ויאמר אלוהים אל אברהם, this after he changes Avram to Avraham, ויאמר אלוהים אל אברהם, שרי אשתך לא תקרא את שמה שרי, כי שרה שמה. וברכתי אותה וגם נתתי ממנה לך בן. This is
Ron,
when they make
did you ever watch a movie in Japanese?
Yes.
That's what it sounds like to them, right?
Yes.
Okay, just I will basically what happened that it was Avram and Sarai. And then when God makes the brit with Avram and Sarai, he basically changed both of their names from Avram to Avraham and from Sarai to Sarah. And the Hey,
Abraham was originally called Abram.
the Hey is for Hashem, for God, basically to include God in their name, because to symbolize the brit with them.
And what does the Torah say about Abraham? Av Hamon Goyim. Means he is incorporating. Exactly. That's the same idea.
Wait, where's God's name in the child's name?
Isaac. It's before. This is before Isaac. This is just before. This is when God tells him, "I will give her a son." You change your name, and this I will give her a son. So
he's letting her have a child. Is that what it is?
No, it's just before.
Before
Abraham and Sarah are about to undertake the foundation setting of the Jewish people. Right? Abraham wasn't Jewish, but Abraham's children and progeny would be Jewish.
Oh, right.
Correct?
Right.
We don't look at Abraham. Abraham's called Avraham HaIvri. It's called the Ivri, the Hebrew.
Father of the Hebrew.
But when he's going to lay down the groundwork, don't be sorry. No, he's trying to lay down the groundwork. For the Jewish people, they have to become expansive people. They have to become people who are not selfish. But how do they do that? Abraham has become Abraham. Why? Because that signifies Av Hamon Goyim. He's the father of many nations. Expansion. And Sarai was focused on herself. She expanded herself to be the minister of everyone. But I'm trying to think if these 2 points are mutually exclusive. Because Jared's trying to say that maybe the way... So how do I expand myself to include someone beyond myself? So you're saying maybe by being selfless.
By being selfless. Or acts of selflessness.
Acts of selflessness means the disagreement to be just purely academic.
Correct.
It's academic.
Now, I will say a true act of selflessness is a lot harder to come by because a lot of times the true intent of why somebody does something for somebody else is not always as pure and selfless as you might hope. You know, I'm going to volunteer at the local food pantry because it's going to look good on my job resume. Okay, like it's not saying it's bad. Like that's not bad. You're still like doing something good. You're doing an act that is, by all accounts, selfless, but the intent is not there.
You're also getting something.
Exactly.
No, but so you're saying that some people do acts of selflessness, but actually not be altruistic.
Exactly.
But I think that they could do acts of selflessness and not be altruistic.
That's what
And that's a good thing. That's what I'm saying.
I'll
tell you why.
And that's why.
I'll tell you what. So let's say I don't know. I want to give you something, but I have a hard time. I want to give you. I have a friend who's living in Israel, who's a Torah scholar, who is a lawyer actually, but right now he's struggling financially. So a different friend of mine is trying to get money, raise some money to help him out. Now, let's say I really, really love my money, right? So it's hard for me to part with the money because I'm giving it to someone else, right? That's the challenge we have in charity, because you like your money, you want to have as much money as possible, and it's hard, even though there's a good cause, to give it away. But if you just feel like, if I feel like my friend in Israel is part of me, he's an extension of me, so I feel I'm giving him a right back to the left pocket. It's not altruistic at all. It means a byproduct of me loving other people and making them feel like they're part of me,
right,
is that selflessness is much easier. It's not a struggle of us to be selfless. It doesn't have to be a constant struggle. It doesn't be like, oh, it's so hard for me to love you, to care for you, to give you stuff, but I'll do it anyhow. It doesn't be like that. It could be, it's like giving stuff to my kid. I love giving stuff to my kid. Right? It's like if Jared and I ever went out for lunch, and we're trying to get Jared to go out for lunch for a while, but we'd always have a fight who's paying for it, right? Because I would want him to pay for it, and he want me to pay for it. Right? No, I'm joking. No, but let's say you go to lunch with someone, right? You go to lunch with someone. This is a good example, right? And there's always this uncomfortable who's paying for it, right? I don't know. Unless it's clear who's paying for it, right?
Yeah.
Has anyone ever had that experience? You're at lunch with someone and you don't know who's going to pay for it, and it's a little uncomfortable to like.
But you're not with a friend.
With a friend or with a colleague or with an associate. Have you had that? Okay, Stephanie had it. Thank you.
First of all, when you're with a girl, obviously it happens more.
Right, because the year is accepted. The man pays.
It happens.
Like, oh, I got it. Oh.
When you're with somebody, when a colleague or somebody is like above you, and then are they gonna pay for me or not?
No, so
offer.
No, but that's Stephanie said that she had that experience. So now,
so how did you go about it?
Now, whenever I go out to eat with my kids, which doesn't happen that often, but I always pay for it. And now, it's not painful for me to pay for it. Why not? Because I paid for my own meal. So this is this one that I ate, and that's what my kid ate. My kid's part of me.
Right.
If I really loved you as much as I love myself, it wouldn't be painful for me to pay for your because I feel like you and me we're part of the same.
It's the same meal.
Exactly, it's the same meal, but it's you and me. Or we look at like to me like giving me money to you is like passing from one pot to the other pot. So I think the benefit maybe of this outlook is that it doesn't be a challenge. Why is life being selfless? Why does it be such a big challenge? Why does it be such a struggle? I've been selfish for 100 years, and now you want to be selfless, and it's a challenge every time. And every time you want to.
Well, I think part of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, part of society teaches us to be selfish. And it comes from a lot of times, and I think it comes from parents. Like my whole life, my parents have said, and I would say this is the case for most people of our generation, is You are special. You are unique. You can do whatever you want to do. Follow your dreams. Yada yada yada. And ingrained in us is this idea that it's okay to be selfish. Now, how granted, I'd like to think that I took that and ran with it one direction, but a lot of people maybe take it and run with it the complete opposite direction.
And say what?
And say, oh, I am going to be selfish. Whereas I see I can, do all the things that I want to do, but at the same time, because I'm able to do that, I have an obligation and responsibility to do for others as well. If that makes sense.
It does make sense.
So I think, that's not necessarily like a new concept, but I think our generation in particular is we've been programmed to be selfish.
Well, but I think every child naturally is selfish. Even before I got talked to this girl,
exactly.
she wants the biggest piece of the pie. Because she's a child. Every child's like that, right, Miriam?
We're talking about
like that. Everyone's like that, and that and that could be a good thing. You can build on the selfishness, but who are you selfish for? Think about it this way: it's much more of a global initiative. If I want to be less selfish, right? So I want to say, so if we use the method of doing acts of selflessness. So it's a challenge for me, but I'm going to give it to you anyhow because I want to be less of a selfish person, right?
But that in itself is selfish. That in and of itself is selfish.
No, making yourself a better person is not selfish.
No, but saying, "Oh, I'm going to do this for you because I want to be less selfish."
Yeah, because
that in and of itself is a selfish.
Right. The change is going to happen to me.
Right, exactly.
I'm going to become more of an altruistic person.
I'm not going to care about you anymore. I'm going to be a better person because I'm being less selfish.
I'm not going to care about you at all.
Right, exactly.
My feelings for you haven't changed. But I'll even go to American friends of Hamas, and I'll give them the biggest gift because I want to be selfish. Right? Doesn't matter who I'm giving it to. I could, as long as I'm not being selfish. I'm not hoarding all my money. I'm not hoarding all my time or my advice. Right? I'm selfish. I'm selfless. But I'm not necessarily engendering love between me and other people. I can become the most selfless person, but not love anyone. But I do think that probably these two ideas probably work well together in tandem. The idea number one of becoming less of a selfish person by doing acts of selflessness. It's a very hard word to say. Selflessness is selflessness. On the other hand, it can't just be a self-centric exercise, and I can't just go to the American friends of Hamas and give them a big gift, and I'll be less selfish. Rather, it should also, in tandem, be the engendering of love and positive quality feelings for the other people, and culminating, obviously, in me feeling their pain as much as I feel my pain. And rondos that when sometimes in the Intifada, Ba'aretz in Israel, so there were bombs exploding every day. It was really terrible times. And you would hear. So what would you feel? What would you feel when you hear, a bomb exploded in a bus and there's 22 dead, right? It's a terrible feeling.
Yeah, you feel bad for the people because you are.
Yeah, but if those people are part of your family, how much worse is it?
I never had anybody that I knew that.
Yeah, but let's say God forbid.
But
let's say God forbid it was somebody in your family.
You're very worried, obviously.
No, let's say somebody in your family is dead.
You feel sad.
You feel much sadder, right? Because you don't feel like that person, that anonymous person that you never met, is part of you. But there was a Reb Chaim Shmulevitz. He was a Rosh Yeshiva. He was the head of the yeshiva that I went to. And they came into his room and they told him that this is in the 70s. The six shoulders were killed. And he sat and cried for a half hour straight. Because to him, these are my brothers. So what if I never met them under the name? But they're part of my family. And it's no different than if my own neighbor, friend, brother, colleague died. means you could expand yourself to really include other people and even unseen people. That's the point. What are you saying, Dana?
Okay. I agree with that. However, I feel that sometimes you do need to kind of draw like a line because you need to be able to kind of separate yourself. Otherwise, if you're working in like a specific situation, you're not going to be able to kind of.
To be too overwhelmed.
You're going to be like too emotional, you know.
No,
I'm
but
not a nurse, but I understand. Like I would feel bad, like, but you have to like kind of.
Basically, what you're saying is that if you want to be
separate yourself.
If you want to be a emergency
like a
room,
health professional,
emergency room, you have to treat this.
Otherwise, you're going to treat every patient.
You have to build a callousness. Build a callousness.
Crying over every single patient that passes away.
I've said the way surgeons have to treat patients is as if they're butchers.
Yeah,
it's
a
meat,
horrible thing.
and they have to do it right.
Surgeon is like they're like plumbers today, basically. They
Plumbers.
do plumbing work because they deal with plumbing stuff in the body. Just you take one tube out, put one tube in.
It has to be
it's
like
all
that.
plumbing work. Seriously, just
Now, but another point, I think is a good point that Dana reminded me of. I appreciate that.
because seriously,
I appreciate that, Dana. No, thank you. You reminded me of something I wanted to say.
Okay.
And that is that ultimately, you have to care for yourself more than you care for everyone else. Remember, if you have one bottle of water, it's your bottle of water. Why? Because me, and obviously the me includes everyone else. I love everyone like I love myself because they're part of me, but obviously I'm the most important part of me. The Torah is never telling us you have to love the fellow as much as you love yourself, but you have to love how to love him like he's part of you. Well, part of you, a more minor part of you, but still part of you.
I understand that.
So you take precedence.
Right.
You take precedence.
I feel like I do. I love every single patient the same. Like they're my own grandma sometimes.
Right. So that's the idea. I think that I want to give a quick recap, and especially those 2 points. When we hear this most famous verse, "Love your fellow as yourself," what does it mean? As yourself means number one, just like I don't love myself because it's a mitzvah to do it. I just have plain emotional, positive feelings towards myself. So too, when I love someone else, it shouldn't be out of obligation. It shouldn't be out of necessity. It shouldn't be out of requirements. Rather, it should be out of emotion. So how do I do that? I have to imagine that other people are part of me. We know that the Talmud in Yerushalmi gives a description of revenge. We know in Judaism we're not supposed to do revenge. And the Mishnah, the Talmud says that it's analogous to a man who uses a sickle. Everybody knows what a sickle is. A sickle.
what is it? Sickle?
Does anybody here know what the word sickle means?
Sickle? It's like a knife?
It's like a knife.
Oh, like when you like the sickles, like icicle.
No, like a sickle is a knife. You were correct the first time.
Well, icicles, like
And the logo or the logo of
the thing that you
cut wheats.
Oh, okay.
Russian thing.
Yeah, the Russian, right? The communist symbol is a sickle and a hammer. A sickle.
Got it.
So it's right. So it's a circular knife, and you use it to cut wheat. You grab wheat and you cut it. So the Talmud gives a story about a guy who was cutting this very sharp knife, and by mistake, his right hand cut off his left hand. Terrible. So his left hand gets upset. Hey, you just cut me off. So the left hand picks up the sickle, cuts off the right hand. That's the example. And I think
to tell it again, I'm sorry, I didn't follow that. What?
a man
Yes.
is using a sickle,
Yes.
and his right hand cuts off his left hand.
His right hand cuts off his left hand.
Yeah. With a sickle, with a knife. By
He's
mistake.
cutting wheat. He accidentally cuts his left hand off.
Now his left hand
Is upset.
and the left hand picks it up and cuts off the right hand. Doesn't make any sense, obviously, right? Why? Because how do you take revenge against yourself?
Yeah.
So says the Talmud. Similarly, I can't take revenge against someone else because we're part of the same thing. We're part of the same entity.
Where's the reading the thing with the right hand and the left hand?
It's the Talmud in Yerushalmi. I don't know. I can't remember exactly where it says it, but I can find it for you if you want.
The Talmud.
So that's the attitude. That's the attitude we have to You want to love someone? How do you love them? Because you're really ultimately part of the same thing.
Last week I went to actually a Tanya class over at Chabad, and the rabbi, he gave this excellent parable. I mean, this story, and it relates to what we're talking about. Selfishness is about this couple who are married, right? Who are this loving couple, and the wife is completely blind and dependent upon the husband for describing the scenes where they happen to go. So he's able to describe exactly. He takes her on these magnificent vacations and describes how the beauty and everything in such great detail that she envisions it as if she did have sight. But then at one point she comes up to at one point the rabbi, the gentleman tells her that we've come up with a new discovery where they have these eye transplants and they could
Restore vision.
Restore your vision. So after a while, she was like, "Okay, where are you gonna find this transplant?" She goes, "Don't worry about it. I'll find somebody." Eventually, he ends up telling her that I found the transplant. I found this person. I found this transplant, and so he ends up going under the transplant and she. Well, anyway, what happened was. Actually, I shouldn't have said anything about that. But the point of the matter is that she ends up getting her eyesight restored. But he tells her that I have to be honest with you, I am blind. And of course, he now depends upon her. It's okay. But anyway, he depends upon her. And eventually what happens is that she feels so burdened by him because for having to describe everything, she requests a divorce. Well, of course, the husband tells her, "Okay, well, I'll grant you the divorce. I'll grant you the divorce, but there's just one thing I want to tell you, and that is before
movies that are so long."
Anyway,
is this The Young and the Restless?
Yeah, this is The Young and the Restless. Exactly.
It sounds like Lord of the Rings. Is this Lord of the Rings?
No. But anyway, so the story goes, he tells her, he says, before you go, I just want to tell you to take good care of my eyes, because I was the one who donated your eyes to you. And of course, what's the story telling her? Like, he went all out to restore her sight for her, but when she had to do the same thing for him, he described, she couldn't handle it, so she went.
I think what they should have done is each one of them kept one eye.
Huh?
Yeah, where's the story from?